Is this the era of the huge mega ocean cruise ships that hold 6,000 people? Is that period coming to an end?
Well, to be clear, those ships aren't going anywhere. Well, technically they are, but they are going to keep cruising. But we predict that future ocean cruise ships are going to be built on a smaller scale.
Hello and welcome, fellow adventurers. You're listening to the Travel Inspired podcast, or better yet, watching it on the Travel Inspired YouTube channel. We are your travel agent hosts and now Amazon #1 best-selling authors, Rob and Kerri Stuart, coming to you from the CMB studio in Orlando, Florida. You're listening to or watching episode number 167.
And on this show, we're talking about one of the fastest growing segments in the travel industry, and that is small ship cruising. And January and February also happen to be wave season for the cruise industry. And you know what? Those are by far the two busiest months for booking any type of cruises.
I remember when we started our travel career well over a decade ago, they used to say wave season was January, February, and March. Now it's just January and February.
I still think it bleeds into March.
Okay, maybe a little bit. And to entice you all, the cruise lines have special deals, whether it's a certain amount off your cruise fare, onboard credit, drink packages, all kinds of different promotions come out for January and February.
And as travel agents, wave season keeps us on our toes. So many offers, and we try to get our clients some of the best deals.
And we mentioned it briefly on the latest Disney Travel Secrets podcast, specifically because Disney's run some crazy deals you don't normally see. And it's because we think the 2026 trend, even for the next probably couple of years, I think you said maybe 2030, it's going to be all about the small ship experiences.
And by small ship experiences, we mean ships with 200 people or less, whether it's a river cruise in Europe or a small ship experience with like Nat Geo Lindblad cruising to the Galapagos or the Antarctica, or some of the smaller ships in the Caribbean.
Well, I know we have 4 river cruises already on our schedule for 2026, and that's a lot. Now, if you combine us getting to the locations early and doing some land options before, we're going to be gone about 30 days this year just on river cruises.
Yeah, and the 4 that we're talking about are rivers in Europe. So the Rhine, the Rhone, the Danube, and new for us, the Douro River in Portugal.
What's funny, or maybe coincidental, is that I was writing the show. I was sitting on the couch working with my laptop, my little laptop desk, and there's a show on Smithsonian. It's called Mighty Cruise Ships. And this show's been around for at least 15 years in one form or another.
Yeah, and so it was also the inspiration for our TV show, All Aboard TV. And we started that back in 2014 doing a proof of concept. Technically, we started filming A New Year's Cruise 2013.
That is true, on the Norwegian Epic. So Mighty Cruise Ships focuses on one cruise ship on one specific cruise line each episode. And that episode that was on while I was writing this was all about Royal Caribbean's Oasis of the Seas.
And that is the ship that really started the trend of building ships that hold 6,000 or more people. And as a matter of fact, when they were building the Oasis class ships, there were very few places it could dock, specifically in the Caribbean.
And we know this because our good friend and former Disney Imagineer Hugh Darley was hired by Royal Caribbean to build the very first port specifically for this ship in Falmouth, Jamaica. Then he also ended up doing about another dozen ports all over the Caribbean.
And he said he thought he was going to get fired because he was in a meeting with the head of like Royal Caribbean, all the corporate people. And he comes in there and they were just like, we need a port somewhere in Jamaica. And he goes in there and he's looking, he's like, who the heck built a ship that can't dock anywhere?
Which I think is a very valid question. And fortunately, Hugh was not fired. And one thing that he did I thought was ingenious. He went to work and found and actually used old marine charts, I think from the early to mid 1800s. Now that's a longer story, and it's way better when you hear Hugh tell it.
So small ship cruising is all about the experience, spending more time in the destinations, and most places you're going to be docking right in the heart of whatever city or destination you happen to be visiting.
Whether it's the rivers in the US or the rivers in Europe, those were the highways back then, way before cars and even trains. And that's why the cities were predominantly built right next to the docks. Or the docks were built next to the city. That's probably a bit more accurate.
Yeah. So Viking Cruises really came up with a very clever saying almost, I say 15 years ago when they were starting to run ads on PBS. And that phrase was spend less time getting there and more time being there.
That quote is something I've known verbatim because it was right around 2012. And that's when we bought our cruise franchise that we had from 2012 to 2018. And did you know that there is one cruise line that cruises the rivers of America?
And they are appropriately named American Cruise Lines.
Very clever.
And they are definitely on our list to experience. Specifically, you want to sail up like the Mississippi, maybe like from New Orleans, go past St. Louis, something like that.
Or do the reverse. Either way, it doesn't matter. And that's because my grandpa was an engineer on a riverboat that cruised the Mississippi. Definitely a workboat. These were not vacation cruises.
And if you've never been on a river or small ship expedition cruise, you might be very surprised about how many different companies there are, how many different ships are currently operating around the world. So many different options.
And this is by no means a complete list.
Yeah, so with river cruising, the cruise market has grown so much.
Yes.
So you're looking at roughly 400 plus river cruise ships globally, if you can believe that fit 200 passengers or less. So on the waterways, they have around 26 ships. Viking, of course, they're like super bougie. They have a gazillion. I'm just going to leave it at that.
They have 80 right now and a few more in the build process.
Yeah, I thought they were almost up to 100.
They probably are. They probably are. Who knows where we get this information?
And then American Cruise Lines has a handful of ships, and Riviera Travel, which is one you may not have heard of, they have about 10 ships right now. And there's still even more on top of that.
The ones we're telling you about are the ones we personally work with as part of our preferred partner list with our agency. Here's something very interesting I found about Riviera Travel. We have a good friend of ours who's also a travel agent, mostly Disney focused over in the UK. And she said Riviera is the only river cruise line that they sell. So it's a UK based company that is very popular on the European rivers. Now, if you haven't heard of them, it's because they just recently in the last year or so started promoting to the US market.
And they have several cruises that have like no single supplements, which means if you're going to travel by yourself, you don't have to pay double like most of the other cruise ships around the world are going to charge. And they even have one ship, the MS George Eliot, which is a solo cabin configuration. Kind of cool.
There's one ship in particular that we have kind of a running joke with our travel agent Diana, and that is the MS Geoffrey Chaucer, which is very interesting because up until 2025, their ships were named after famous British authors.
So many crazy stories behind the namings of these different ships.
Yes.
Now, shifting gears a little bit, you got your river cruises, and then this other one is such a growing trend, and that is expedition and small ship ocean cruising. Yeah. So this is where it gets really interesting because the market has exploded in, they say the last 5 to 10 years, but I really think the last 5 years. So here's what's fascinating, and this number really jumped out at me, is that there's actually 100 plus ships across, of course, numerous cruise lines. So one of my favorites, just because I love their itinerary and I love the programs that they have for families on board and kids of all ages, and that is National Geographic Lindblad Expedition.
Okay, that's a long name.
Super long.
So everybody in the business, we just call it Nat Geo Lindblad. And they are one of the companies we really love working with when it comes to expedition cruising for creating magic vacations. They currently have, I think it's around 10 ships. I think they're all building more now. But we also know with how popular this segment of the industry is becoming, they'll be building more of these type expedition ships. Again, there's around 10 or 12 right now.
So one of the things that I love about the partnership that Lindblad has made with National Geographic was they have kind of been a game changer for expedition cruising. So you're kind of combining some really cool worlds because National Geographic brings their brand credibility because they have the photographers, the researchers, they have that iconic yellow rectangle that signals the quality to consumers. And then you have Lindblad, who brings the ships and their expedition expertise and the operational know-how.
Well, here's what really makes it, I think, that partnership works so well together is every voyage has a Nat Geo photographer, naturalist, and scientist on board. These are not just lecturers. They're actually going to help the guests capture better photos, understand the destinations, and explain the wildlife.
Yeah, and so I think they have some really, really great programs. So if you're really into photography, you can talk with one of their instructors. And we find that the people who like to go on these types of cruises are usually somebody who wants to have an educational experience on their cruise. Maybe their hobby photographers and they want to learn a little bit more. So you definitely get a little more of an affluent crowd who is really looking for an adventure, but something different, and they're going to learn something on that cruise.
Now, some people might think the smaller ships are going to be boring because they don't have a lot of things to do. They don't have like a lot of casinos and onboard performances and fancy entertainment, multiple bars. However, having sailed on several small ships, one thing we like is you really get to know your fellow passengers. We did back in 2015. We sailed with, I think, 25 other passengers on a very small ship down the Amazon River, starting in Peru. By the time that cruise gets over, or even when it gets a couple days in, you know everybody, and that's a really special feeling.
And typically they will have some sort of small entertainment in the evenings, like before or after dinner. And then people just like to hang out. And I think it's a really nice change from going from some of the bigger ships where you're going from thing to thing to thing to thing.
Where's the next show?
Yeah, where's the next show? Where's the slide? Where's, this, that. And it really does have more of a vacation relaxation vibe.
It does. And the small ships also will attract these experts. So sometimes you'll have some guest lecturers in addition to the other experts who come on board. And they enhance the experience by teaching you more about history and the destination, something we 100% experienced on the Amazon.
Yeah, and so you get to interact with the crew more on small ships because they're not managing thousands of people. So you get more concierge level type services that are normally reserved for some of the people that are in those fancy suites on the larger ships.
We really expect by 2030, more and more people will be moving to, again, these smaller ship experiences. They're done going to the same places in the Caribbean. I'm not talking about you, Nassau, and the Mediterranean. And the smaller ships have access to the smaller ports as well.
Well, speaking of like Nassau and the Caribbean, if you're on a smaller ship and you're on the Caribbean, you get to go to places like St. Bart's. That's like where the rich and the famous hang out. I remember we went there on a small ship cruise with Windstar.
Oh, yeah.
It was Silver Sea on theirs.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just super crazy because the big ships aren't going to go to some of these exclusive places. So that also means you don't have to deal with those packed ports of thousands and thousands of people like Nassau and Cozumel.
Which we still like. Just in different ways.
Yes.
And of course, not all small ships are the same. What they include and don't include can be different. And this is why you're going to want to work with a travel advisor who can help match you to the right small ship and also the best itinerary.
And so if you want to learn more about the different cruises and the differences in the different cruises in the small ship categories, you know what? Here's an idea. Head over to Amazon and get a copy of our recently updated and #1 bestseller book, Just Add Water, Your Guide to the Ultimate Cruise Vacation. Right now, the Kindle version is on sale as of the airing of this show, and it's only going to be that way for the next couple weeks. And you can pick it up for $1.
And if we can help you with your small ship adventure, reach out to us or one of our Creating Magic Vacations travel advisors.
So what vacation memories are you going to create in 2026?
And our motto, travel is better with friends, so never stop exploring.